by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. Your Tennessee Titans season has ended with a 36-22 loss down in Jacksonville. Head coach Mike Vrabel will address the media here at 11:30 this morning. After the loss, he addressed not being able to finish.
I thought we started the game how we wanted to, but you got to finish better. You have to finish. I was confident that we would, and we didn't.
Titans team reporter Jim White reported this morning that Amy Adams Strunk is interviewing the next GM candidates this week. Strunk said it'll be important for the new GM to work hand in hand with Mike Vrabel. And your Nashville Predators will be taking on the Ottawa Senators this evening with pregame at 5:30, puck drop at 6:30. This update is brought to you by the law offices of Amanda J. Gentry. I'm Nick Keyser for 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Tonight, your Nashville Predators continue their road trip against the Ottawa Senators. Coverage begins at 5:30 on your home for Smashville. WPRT FM Pegram, WBUC HD2 Laverne, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Covering your teams and the news of the day.
Ladies and gentlemen,
this is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase.
Who is pleasant to listen to.
With Caroline Fenton, Willy Donick, and former NFL wide receiver Derek Mason.
You are hands down my favorite radio personalities of all time.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
With no further ado,
Jaguars have won the AFC South.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We are live from the Game studio, sponsored by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. And of course, we are streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every day. Our video streaming is brought to you by Superbook. D-Mase.
Yes.
I'm depressed.
I'm
All
right,
sad.
come on. Here, listen. There's the chair. Sit down. I'm gonna get my notepad.
Thank you.
And
maybe I might need a moist towelette to put in my forehead
So,
to ease the pain. Of course, Titans falling to the Jags on Saturday night in typical Titans fashion. In the same way that we've seen the Titans blow games all season long. Turnovers, not doing much in the second half. And I think we could spend all day long breaking this game down. Was it a fumble or was it not? Was it forward motion or not? Mm-hmm. What was going on with the defensive line in the first half? How great Josh Dobbs looked in the first half. We can break down the game. But I feel like you, the listeners, don't really want to hear that right now. And to be completely honest with you, that's not really what I want to talk about right now. Because I feel like any of the X's and O's and any of the game breakdowns and any of the calls that we thought were bad made by the refs or maybe the offensive play calling by Todd Downing, who I don't think called it a horrible game on Saturday. I don't really want to talk about that because I feel like that's not what really people care about. That's such a moot point at this point. Because it doesn't really matter exactly, the minute details of Saturday night. What really matters is, what does this team do moving forward? And I'll go back to how I felt when the Titans season ended last year. Divisional round of the playoffs, Ryan Tannehill throws 3 interceptions, and then that's the Titans season. And yeah, I was mad and I was upset, and I thought, gosh, this is such a good team that really has a legitimate shot at the playoff or at a Super Bowl run, and it was just thrown away by Ryan Tannehill. But I felt so much different at the end of last season than I do this season. I was still mad and angry. But I think we all had a pretty clear vision of what this team could be moving forward. It had a good bit of its core players. The defense took a big step up from 2020 to 2021. Yes, there were so many questions about Ryan Tannehill, what the Titans do at the quarterback position, but I think we all kind of knew that moving forward with Ryan Tannehill was most likely going to be the plan, more likely than not. I think I felt after last season, man, that was really tough. And man, the Titans Super Bowl window is getting smaller and smaller and smaller by the day. But I still felt like this team had a good vision moving forward of who it wanted to be, what it wanted to be. I don't feel that way. That kind of really frustrated but still confident about this team feeling that I had ending last year, I don't have that. Because now all the questions that remain for me are, who is this team? What is this team? What does this team want to be? What is the vision for this team moving forward? I have so many questions about the identity of this team and what it really truly wants to be. And that's a pretty scary situation to be in.
Yeah, it is. Typically at the end of the season, and listen, they may, over at the complex, they may have, these checklists or this identity that they want to stick to, and I'm sure they do. And I could sit here and with almost certainty say that their identity is run the football, play aggressive, fast, and physical defense, and sort of exert their will on opponents and play action pass. So they are a run-based team, play hard defense, and everything else that comes after that, okay, fine, whatever. I think that's who they believe they are. And at times, they've shown it throughout Vrabel's tenure here, his short tenure here in Nashville. But I don't think that model moving forward is sustainable for this reason. If you're not able to score points, then we're just going to run the football and play aggressive defense, hard defense. It lasts for a while. But then ultimately, those teams that can score, they will score. And if you don't have an offense that can put up points, if you have an offense that you've had, say, this year, you can't rely so heavy on your defense to show up each and every quarter. Do you want them to? Absolutely. Do they want to? Absolutely.
Do you pay them to?
Absolutely. But this is football. It's not going to happen that way. One side of the ball is not going to be that dominant every game. Now, if you look at it throughout the season, when you end it, yes, they're a dominant team based on statistics and everything else. But you can't expect them each and every game to come out and dominate in that fashion when your offense is only putting up less than 20 points a game. You got to find some way as a head coach, because Vrabel's not going anywhere. You got to find some way to usher this team into the new millennium. Every team has done it. They've done it sort of in their own way, but they've done it, or they've tried to do it. I don't think this team has tried to do it from this standpoint, because I'm only going by what they're showing us. You get rid of Conklin, who could have been your right tackle for the next 10 to 15 years if he wanted to play that long. You got rid of Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith, who could have been still on your roster. You still could have drafted Chig and had Chig and Jonnu together. You still could have drafted Traylon Burks if you didn't keep A.J. Brown. You had a veteran guy that knew the system, that understood it, that wasn't coming off an ACL. You team him with the rookie, and your offense is still looking good. But because of the personnel decisions you chose to make, this organization, I'm not blaming it on one guy, but because this organization chose to make the decisions they did, we are at a point where this team has not shown any true progress from an offensive standpoint. From a defensive standpoint, yes, they have.
Totally.
But from an offensive standpoint, if you really look at it the last 5 years, and I hate that I left my book on the table, but this offense has regressed the last 3 years. Each year they've gotten worse. And that to me tells me that you haven't done the necessary things as an organization to help usher this team into a league that's all about scoring. If you want to win, you got to score in this league. Not too many teams are stopping people and holding them to 10 points anymore. That's just not happening. If you want to win, have a good defense, but you got to have an offense that can score. And this Titan offense, it's almost like they're allergic to scoring sometimes. It's like, for some reason, something goes on and I'm watching it and it's like, well, everybody else can score, but you can't. And maybe I'm biased because I see the team every week and I don't see every other team every week. So I may not know the struggles that they have. But it looks as if this offense is playing like a 2000s offense.
It's totally a vintage style of football of run, play really good defense, affect the quarterback. And I understand that's kind of an antiquated system of football in the era of a super high scoring and a lot of passing league. But this was the same style of football that got the Titans the number 1 seed in the AFC last year. Let's not forget, the Titans offense took a considerable step back from 2020 to 2021. It was one of the top offenses in the league a couple years ago. And then Ryan Tannehill takes a little bit of a step back. The offensive line is still a concern in 2021. But by running the football, playing fairly conservatively offensively, and just, playing tough defense, the Titans were still the top seed in the AFC. I still believe if Ryan Tannehill doesn't throw 3 interceptions against the Bengals, the Titans probably had a really good shot at playing in the Super Bowl.
I can still believe that if the pass doesn't bounce off of our running back's arm and into the hands of the Baltimore defender and they race down to score, that we had a good shot at winning the Super Bowl.
Totally.
Ifs and all that other stuff means nothing now. It means totally nothing. That team had an opportunity. They didn't take advantage of it, regardless of what was said or what was done. They didn't take advantage, just like we didn't take advantage of it in 2000 when we had the opportunity. This team, after being the number 1 seed last year, in which I look at it as, okay, that's great. It's great being the number 1 seed. You benefited a lot because that your division is horrible, but yet and still you went out and you beat teams.
You beat the Rams on the road.
You beat the Rams on the road.
Beat the Chiefs, beat the Bills.
Beat the Chiefs, beat the Bills. But when you had to really show up when it meant something in the playoffs, see, we can do whatever we want during the regular season. All we say is put yourself in a position to get in the playoffs. That's all you want to do, either whether it's the wild card or you're the number 1 seed. But after that, the real season starts. The real season starts in the playoffs. There's only 7 teams in the playoffs. That's when the real season starts. And if you can't generate points, because you have to generate points in the playoffs. If you can't generate points in the playoffs, or if you're doing things that are going to cost you the game, then I don't care how talented you are or you think you are, you're not going to win the ball game. The Tennessee Titans last year, they relied so heavy on running the football that passing the football to them, yeah, they had some good games here and there, but then they really had to pass the football to win games. A lot of times it didn't work because they haven't figured out a way to consistently move the ball down the field. I've always talked consistently move. Look like a NFL passing offense. It looks like at times y'all struggle to throw the football.
Yeah, 100%.
And that you can't, if you want to get to the Super Bowl, you can't struggle throwing the football unless you have a historically good defense, which means you're giving up 10 points or less, or you're taking the ball away like Philadelphia did this year, or you're running the ball at a clip that's going to allow you to win games in that fashion, i.e. the year prior to them going, the year they went to the AFC Championship game. I think that was it was the year after because they lost to Baltimore. But you got to be running the ball at a clip that it sort of makes up for the things you can't do from a pass standpoint. And I don't think the Titans are there anymore. I think Derrick Henry is a really good running back, but not the running back that can just single-handedly take over a game, every game like he did in years prior. He's not that running back anymore. So now you have to switch. You got to start thinking more of, how do I take less pressure off of Derrick Henry and score more points? Can that happen? It can if you surround Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill with the right personnel and have the right coaches. I'm not talking about Vrabel. I'm talking about everybody below Vrabel. So it can be done, but you got to make these changes.
And I think that is going to be one of the biggest questions asked of Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel will be at the podium in 5 minutes. We will carry that live. A lot of the questions will be about the offense. What do you do to address the offense? How do you avoid being at the bottom of the NFL in terms of second half scoring? This offense needs to be brought into the 21st century. Is that Mike Vrabel's plan? What is the plan moving forward? All of those are on the table. All of those questions are on the table for Mike Vrabel. We'll get to him at the podium in just about 5 minutes. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
every Wednesday at noon.
No matter the down and distance and no matter the score, they're going to give him the football.
Outkick 360's Jonathan Hutton joins Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase to talk all things Titans and NFL.
I hope that they're not throwing flags simply because the league wants to see more of them.
He's got opinions and insights on the two-tone blue.
They are not as good at wide receiver and the playmaking department.
Catch Hutton every Wednesday at noon. Presented by Blend Bar with Davidoff Cigars and by Edley's Barbecue on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Now is a fantastic time to sell in Nashville, but you can't do it without the intel. And no one has better intel than the Gary Ashton team. You may be wondering, what is this intel I keep hearing about? Intel so you can sell your home without any staging or showings. Intel on where to find your next home so you can sell your current one while the market's hot. Intel that helps you win the buyer battle and cash in on your home equity now. Everyone else is getting the same information and competing for the same properties. GaryAshton.com gives you the edge with the best real estate intel in Nashville. No one else even comes close. Plus, the Gary Ashton team is the official real estate agent for the Preds. Get the confidence to sell your home and find your dream address without the stress. Call the Gary Ashton team with RE/MAX Advantage today at 615-301-1650 or visit GaryAshton.com. And remember, don't sell without the intel.
Professional quilt maker Dana Balliard once said, "There are no rules in quilting, and if you think that there are, then it's time you try breaking a few." Now, I like that type of creative entrepreneurial spirit, and that's why I do my adult beverage trading at Red Spirits and Wine. It's not just a great selection of distilled spirits, single-barrel Red Select whiskeys, great wines from around the world, and awesome craft beers, but it's more the way the folks at Red just go about their business. At Red, they keep it interesting and fun. The Cracker Jack crew makes you feel welcome after a hard day on the trail, never coming off like some of them snooty-nosed, big-talking whoop-de-doos. At Red, it's always square dealing with the best in service, selection, and prices. Plus, Red is locally owned by real folks, not some totally faceless corporation. There's no doubt in my mind, Red is my kind of place. Red Spirits and Wine, Highway 70 South and Old Hickory Boulevard. Check them out on Facebook, Instagram, and at redspirits.com.
The Mina Kimes Show, featuring Lenny.
And we should know, and I assume you saw this, but it's too late to take back your pick.
I can tell you I saw that because I was the one that texted that to you.
Oh, I missed that. I can confirm you texted that to me, and I wrote back, "Damn, that would be huge." This was an hour and a half ago in my defense. I've been busy.
Listen and subscribe to The Mina Kimes Show, featuring Lenny, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Wireless headphones. That'll be $200.
I'll use my Capital One Quicksilver card.
Now that's a hit. You used the Capital One Quicksilver card, which makes you the hero of every purchase. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
I wanted running music, but unlimited 1.5% cash back is pretty heroic.
Good instincts. Every hero needs a theme song. The Capital One Quicksilver card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Hey Nashville, TJ Anderson here. With real estate listings, you have to read between the lines. Like waterfront property, more like a mosquito farm. Pride of ownership, they're really proud of the DIY job they did. Seller says sell. Really? I thought they just put it on the market for fun. My team at TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty is ready to help both home buyers and sellers decode the market. Oh, and if it says don't let this one pass you by, it's probably on wheels. Google TJ Anderson Homes, read our reviews, and see why we are referred for a reason. TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty, 615-432-2919.
312 Pizza Company is the official sponsor and location of Southeastern Carolines with Caroline Fenton.
Want to see our smiling faces? You can watch us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live.
We are good to go.
Presented by Superbook Sports, voted #1 sportsbook in Vegas. Having some fun in the midday.
Okay, that's really fun.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase.
It's a good source of energy because it's live.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Mike Vrabel will be up at the podium in just a matter of seconds, minutes, And D-Mase, the number one thing that I want to take away from Mike Vrabel's press conference, which we will carry live here, is what's the vision moving forward? What's the vision from the top all the way to the bottom? What's the vision for, the power dynamic between Mike Vrabel and the future general manager? What's the plan with some of the coaching staff? How do you move forward with the offensive coordinator? How do you move forward with special teams coordinator, which has proven to be a bugaboo for this team, not just this season, but for so many years in the past? What is the plan? What's the offensive identity moving forward? Like you just mentioned, the Titans are one of the few remaining teams in the NFL, if not the lonely remaining team in the NFL, that really sticks to that vintage style of football. Run, play really good defense. Is that the plan moving forward? And if not, is Ryan Tannehill part of this offense moving forward? Is Derrick Henry part of this offense moving forward? So just kind of the questions that I have that remain are, what is the plan and who is going to be retained in order to execute that plan?
Unfortunately, I don't think you're going to get any of that today. I think he's going to try to stick to, the game and what has happened during the season. He's going to say, we have some hard decisions to make, but he's not going to give you a definitive answer on, the coaching staff, definitely not the GM.
No, and Amy Adams-Strunk already said that they're going to be conducting interviews throughout this week about the GM. But that's what I want to know, not necessarily about names of who they're looking at, who they're talking to, but, what does Vrabel view as the dynamic between those two moving forward? How does Mike Vrabel view his role in terms of, talent evaluation, in terms of drafting? Does he play a larger role with this new GM? Is Mike Vrabel going to be the end-all, be-all, going to be like the Andy Reid, Bill Belichick kind of role for this organization? And I doubt he's going to tell you.
Yeah, if he tells you, I would be surprised, happily surprised.
Right.
But I don't think he's going to involve himself with those matters yet. So I think he's going to try to keep it on the players and on the game last night in the season. And, he's going to say, listen, we got some tough decisions to make as an organization on players. I appreciate the players, all that they did this season. So that's the route he's going to take, I believe. He's going to try to stay away from the whole GM thing and the potential firing of coaches.
And I do wonder, are their minds made up about the coaches? I've seen what I have needed to see from Todd Downing. To be completely
you and a lot
fair,
of other people.
To be completely fair, I don't think he called a bad game on Saturday.
No, I don't think he did either.
But it's the body of work. It's the season as a whole. It's the offensive ineptitude for this team as a whole. The fact that they're putting up consistently 14 to 17 points a game. But we will see, because Mike Vrabel is at the podium. We'll take it now to St. Thomas Sportsplex.
Terry's recorder.
Makes up for all the Zoom calls, Coach.
It's okay. We should do a highlight. We should do a highlight of those.
Mike, with all the injuries this year, how much do you take that into account assessing the offensive performance and Todd Downing as coordinator?
Well, I think you take into everything when you evaluate, all levels of the organization. There were things, I think the consistency, is really the biggest thing, that stood out when you look at that particular unit and our units in general. There were conversations that we had earlier in the season, about our special teams being just one play away from being a dominating performance in the game, where we played really well and, punted and covered and tackled them inside the 20 and had punt returns and kickoff returns. And then, as attrition happened and, had some guys down and moving parts and bringing people in from other places, that happened offensively, that happened defensively, and happened on special teams. So, I think you look at it and you evaluate everything that you're doing and who you're doing it with and the staff that you put in place for the players.
Mike, in terms of just where this organization is, in your mind, are you better off with a minor changes and better luck, or major changes?
Well, I think change is obviously a part of this league. It's part of professional sports. I think that there'll be conversations, here in the short term about, the general manager and where that goes, and then that person and I will have conversations. We'll have conversations with Amy, about the extent of the change that we have. I don't think that that's something that is going to happen, necessarily overnight, but there's going to be, change.
How about within the coaching staff? I know, like, you preach loyalty. That's one of your foundations.
Mm-hmm.
How do you weigh that against the performance that?
Yeah, and I don't think that, loyalty clearly is a two-way street, and so is trust and all that other stuff. And I think that one thing that, going back to where you drew that from, was things that I look for, or that I certainly want to make sure is at the forefront, is that can you trust this person right outside of here, and can you trust them that the messages that you're portraying to the team are getting relayed, and that they're allowing for to put your message into their own words, and that they're not out there looking for another job, or they're not giving the players mixed messages. I think that's the loyalty, that I'm looking for. The loyalty that I have is obviously just to do, put people in place that are, right for the football team. And so I'll look at each and every phase of our team as it relates to the coaching staff, as it relates to the players, and that process is obviously started. Just finished up meeting with the players and thank them, and then I'll have conversations with the coaches throughout this week and next week.
What's it bringing Todd back as offensive coordinator? What's it like for you, Mike, as a head coach? What was your final message to them?
Well, the final message was that I thanked them. I thanked the guys that started this process on April 18th. Had been through a lot. I thanked them for their dedication. Other than a few games, that I felt like, maybe we were outmanned. I felt like, we competed. Unfortunately, we were 5-6 in one-score games. That's something that had been a strength of ours in the past, and it wasn't. I asked them to stay in communication with. I don't want this to be a seasonal type of deal. I don't want it to be transactional. Try to build a connection with them, try to make relationships with them. You care about their family, you care about their children and things that they're doing. So I've asked them to communicate and stay in communication. I'd hope that they had learned some lessons along the way outside of football, and told them to thank everybody here that helped them do their job this year.
Mike, are you bringing Todd back as the offensive coordinator?
Our offensive coordinator and Todd, that'll be part of the conversations, and that'll be part of my evaluation, this week as it relates to the football team.
Any changes been made yet, Mike, on the coaching staff?
No, not yet. Just still, again, working through conversations with the players and having some meetings, and, I'll meet with the coaches and, continue that process.
When you look at offense in particular, Mike, and Todd's 2 years, numbers have gone down. Obviously, a lot of factors go into that with injuries and so forth. But, I guess what in your mind has he done best over the past couple of years?
Well, I think that there's a consistency. I think we've, built the offense around Derek. We've, had a lot of success in that regard. We have to protect our quarterback better. When you don't protect your quarterback, they get hurt or they turn the ball over. So we have to do that. We have to take care of the football. We gave it to our best player, and he turned it over this year, and he hadn't in the past. And so there's a lot of factors that go into performance, and we'll look at everything.
Why is it important to bring back a guy like Jeffrey Simmons?
Well, Jeff's under contract, I think. So.
But just in future with the negotiations, just what does he bring to this team?
Oh, man, leadership, toughness, accountability, performance. Just every day coming to work with a great attitude. He plays through a lot of pain and discomfort. He played, through a lot of things in his career here. So those are things that I value and appreciate in a player.
Are you optimistic that Ryan will be your starting quarterback next year?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of guys here that are under contract. We have a lot of guys that want Ryan to get as healthy as he possibly can, and then go and be our quarterback and figure out things that are going to help us win. And then that's the case for a lot of guys. A lot of guys are that are under contract that finish the season not out there. So let's get everybody healthy and let's see where everybody's at, and then we can make some decisions.
So you don't feel comfortable right now committing to Ryan as the starter for next year?
Well, I mean, he's our starting quarterback. If he was healthy, he's our starting quarterback. You know what I mean? So that's all I can tell you. And right now, there's a lot of guys that aren't healthy and that didn't finish the game. I mean, I think we're going to talk a lot of hypotheticals 2 days after our last game. So, happy to talk a lot about things that I can answer, but I can't answer things that are in the future.
What has Amy told you about how the kind of search now that we're out of the season, how the search will play out for the GM and what your role will be?
Well, comfortable, with those conversations about, being involved. I think that they're excited about the group that they're going to bring in and meet with. And I think that, once they kind of get through that first process, be involved in, whatever would come after that in probably a smaller group. Excited about that process and being involved and, helping in any way that I can.
She asked for your input on anyone that you may already know that you would have a preference for?
Yeah, I mean, we've had conversations about it, so I would just say that those were good conversations, open conversations. So, yeah, that's, it's not like Amy's kept me in the dark about the process and how that's going.
A lot of players talk about the uncertainty, with the fact that there is no GM at this time. Did you discuss that at all with your players and how they approach this offseason, whether they're under contract or not?
I mean, as a player, there was always uncertainty, so as a coach, there's uncertainty in this business. It's whether there's a GM, there's an interim GM, whether there's no GM, there's uncertainty. That wouldn't change if we hired a GM tomorrow.
Like with all the injuries the last couple of years, we just chalk this up to bad luck, or is there anything you can do?
Well, we have to address it. We have to at least look at it, and we are, and we have, and we do it every single day. That I meet with Todd, that we meet with Frank, that we're trying to figure out what these injuries are, Gentry, and I know that everybody, has got the answers. I don't know if I have the answers on, the 90% of the injuries occurred in the game, right? Of an ACL or an MCL or a high ankle sprain. I mean, those are hard, We look at soft tissue injuries. We look at those soft tissue injuries of, repeat offenders. It doesn't take too hard to look and see that, Christian Fulton and David Long are, they were repeat offenders of soft tissue injuries. They have to figure out a way to train and act like, the game is played at a high speed. Kevin Byard hadn't pulled a hamstring since we've been here. And there's a durability factor to playing professional football that we should not overlook. Like that's real. There's guys that are durable and there's guys that aren't. And we're going to try, you're going to keep asking me about these questions or these injuries, and I'm going to try to do my best to answer them. How we practice, how we practice in preseason, and that the data that we're getting about the regeneration days. Now, do you want to be a blister or you want to be a callus? And, do you want to keep working through every day and you get your volume up so that you can withstand the volume and the rigors of the season? And that would be callus. Or do you want to be a blister and you want to, feel some discomfort, pull back, wait till you feel good, and then come back and do it for a couple days, and then you're going to, keep feeling that way. So those are the two thoughts. We've tried to get them to maximum speed, 90%. We've talked about that throughout the week so that it's not Sunday to Sunday proposition that all of a sudden, they've got to go and sprint and get up to 90, 95%. and they haven't been there since the previous week. And there is a level of luck that I think there's a level, it's cyclical. I mean, we've had two, awful years as it relates to injuries. Prior to that, I think it was at a level where you could, say that it was in the range of normal. So.
Can you just describe, Mike, how different is that thought process from like when you first got here and the way you guys are doing things?
It's not. I mean, maybe the training camp, I think other than the training camp, we've added the regen days. We've added some of that time off. If anything, we've added that into the schedule of training camp. Just trying to look at, the length of it, when you're not playing games. And, there's some days where you have to look, and some guys that aren't playing in games, with the day off, the day before, you're trying to manufacture work for them. So we're always trying to be creative and make sure that everybody has a plan to stay as healthy as possible, and then obviously the return to play. I love what we do with our training staff, our rehab staff, the strength and conditioning that has knowledge within the football. Brian Bell puts a lot of time in with the coaches so that he knows what drills to do as these guys are returning to play, and then ultimately trying to get them back onto the field.
Has there not been enough emphasis, Mike, on durability in the acquisition process?
Well, we've certainly brought some guys in or had some guys that have had some injury history. And if that's, I don't know if that's always a predictor of the future. In some cases it maybe was, and in some cases it wasn't.
As you turn the page to free agency and draft, that evaluation process, with this new GM coming, how much involvement would you like to have in bringing guys in that match what you want to do?
Well, I think that's the whole idea. I'm comfortable that, throughout this process of, communication and finding the right person, the collaboration obviously is critical. I feel like we've, put some time in here over the course of 5 years. It hasn't been perfect, but we certainly have an idea of the type of people. And I think you start with the person. You start with the person, and then you make sure that, the talent and the skill set fits. But I think it's about people and who they are, the type of leaders they are, the type of teammates they are. I think you start there because you learned anything. You learned that this is a tough gig. It's a long gig. And the front runners may be good when things are going well, but when you have some hiccups and you have some, adversity, you really need some dudes that, are going to stick there and kind of do it each and every day.
Would you like that collaboration to remain as it was with the previous GM, or are you looking for that to increase?
Well, I'm just looking to try to bring in the best people and the best players that we possibly can.
How collaborative was it?
Again, just going forward, just trying to find the best GM right now. That's the next step. Trying to work through the staff, work through the players, work through meetings. And then when they ask me to be involved, I'm comfortable and excited to be involved in the process, not about where we were or what we did.
At the quarterback position, did Josh Dobbs give you something to maybe think about as far as bringing him back? And to kind of piggyback on that, what's the message to Malik moving forward?
Well, I think I'll start with the message to Malik moving forward. I mean, the message is continue to improve, continue to develop, continue to, work on those things that we've continued to discuss, whether it be with, being able to progress through, being able to recognize, rotation, coverages, just overall knowledge of what he's doing each and every day, which is what he did on the show team most of the year. Come back with a great attitude, with knowledge of what we're doing offensively, being in shape. And that's I told all the young guys, that this isn't a 6-month job. If they don't work harder between their the next 4 months than they did to get here, there's a whole new crop of players that are waiting to come into that spot. That's the nature of this business, and that's not a threat to anybody. That's just what it is. You know, you look at the development of Tier Tart over his first, second, third year. You know, I mean, or whereas said Jaden Peavy, if you don't do anything, you don't work any harder, then we just got another Peavy that'll just come through the pipeline, and just explaining to him. As far as Josh, I think, certainly would have to have a conversation. I enjoyed having him here. I think he made an impact in a short amount of time. We'll have those conversations and, see where we end up.
The one thing about this team is there was never any finger pointing, it seemed like, from the guys in the locker room. That's hard to do when you go on a 7-game skid. How was that able, I guess, to be able to keep that culture together?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you've talked about. Well, I've tried to talk about is it's not when you're winning, the culture. The culture is about, maybe when things aren't going so well. And guys continue to prepare, continue to show up, get on a plane, go to Jacksonville with every intent to win that football game. And, for most of that game, I thought we did everything that we could. We came up short there in the end. But, it all comes down to, trying to be consistent and starting with my message to the team, the people that we put around them, the coaches and the trainers and, our support staff, and then obviously the players. It's their responsibility, and they did that. They stuck together and tried to find ways to prepare and try to find ways to win.
Mike, as you go about
this organization would go the path of rebuilding from the bottom up, as opposed to running it back with the group that you guys have had over the last couple of years with the changes?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a number of things that you could do. We could, there's a lot of that's those questions that you ask every year. As you construct a roster, as you do a lot of different things, and our goals will never change. Our goal is to have a championship football team. Have fallen short, of that, but we still know what wins. We still know, and we're going to win. But again, there's decisions that will be made throughout the off season, and starting with, free agency, guys that we identify, trying to get somebody hired and looking at where we are with the salary cap and all those things that everybody's concerned about.
Mike, as you go about evaluating your coaching staff and your players and looking at what needs to change, how do you go about evaluating yourself as you kind of reflect on what's been your first losing season? How do you kind of internally look at the job you've done?
I think when you work, the ability to play with 23 guys on a practice squad or from the street out of 48, you look at how competitive you are. Didn't do a good enough job. We lost too many games. I think that those things will come. I think that self-reflection. Nobody would evaluate that they did a good enough job because we didn't win. How I try to lead and the connection that I make with the players, and ultimately you're only defined by one thing, that's whether you win or not. So, short answer is that it wasn't good enough.
Very Henry-centric on offense during your time, Mike, and a lot of success. Going forward, do you still envision that being kind of the main theme, or do you see it veering off at all in the future?
We'll have to see where things go in the off season and see where we think is best for the football team and the identity of the football team and where everybody is and what those plans are. So I can't really answer things that are a few months away and the direction, but confident that we're going to be aligned. That the organization starts with alignment from Amy, to with myself, the general manager, the coaching staff, the players. That's what's important in the off season, is making sure that those things are in place.
Assessing the offensive line, is it more a matter of trying to just revamp and get more players in that maybe are healthier and be better there? Or is it a situation where maybe you have to kind of tweak the scheme and how you're going about things?
You got to protect your quarterback in the National Football League. When you don't, what happens? Well, they get hurt and they turn the ball over. So we need to find guys that can protect the quarterback, just because that's what happens. He showed up, throughout the season and, kept some guys in and chip and all this other stuff. And, we'll just have to, keep searching for them and keep finding them and keep working with them.
How much does your ranking in pass defense have to do with the fact that teams just stopped trying to run the ball against you, and how much of it is that
there
you
was
weren't
some
good
volume
enough?
there. Yeah, I think that, can't be first and run and last and pass. I mean, it goes hand in hand. We got to find, ways to rush the quarterback and impact the quarterback. That's the best coverage, is being able to rush them. And then that'll be conversations that I'll have, with Shane, the coaching staff, but it starts there, and then it starts to, materialize into, the coverage and zone and man, but that's something that we have to, we certainly have to improve on.
Mike, when you're assessing the coaching staff here, how much of it is based on practice, teaching, development, and how much of it is game execution?
Yeah, I think that there's, you got to teach, you got to develop, and you have to inspire the player. And I think, the play callers, have to be, efficient and be in rhythm and understand what we're trying to do as a team. That we want, to execute the game plan and what I feel like is the best way to win that particular game.
You brought up the pass rush. Why do you think the production did end up dropping the second half of the season?
I mean, we talked about, Danico's, the time that he was out, So Harold wasn't out there for the whole year. There was some production there. That's the easiest way to cover, is to speed up the quarterback's clock, and did some of that, at times, but just not consistent enough on, first Jacksonville game or some of those games.
You mentioned Harold. I mean, we hadn't seen him since August. How's his recovery going? And you expect him to be ready?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see him around. He looks good. He's made Nashville his home. It's great to see him. Him and Danielle and the kids, and so hopefully, he'll have, be ready to go and have a full recovery and, get back to playing the way he was before he got injured.
Mike, you mentioned being pleased with what you saw from Dobbs. What would you like to see from Malik going into next year? What would you like to see him work on this offseason for next year?
Yeah, I think I answered that question. Jim asked me 5 minutes ago.
Fourth quarter issues, 37 points.
Jim, you shared the quotes with him?
Sorry, Jimmy, I didn't hear you. I apologize.
37 points combined for the fourth quarter in 17 games. For a team that has prided itself on finishing, how disappointing was that number maybe?
Losing is disappointing, Teresa. Losing is disappointing. So if we'd have scored 18 in the fourth quarter and been able to win because we had the ball and we finished with it in our hands like we did against Indianapolis twice, but we never won a game when we had the ball in our hands and needed to score. We missed a kick opening week of the season, and then never scored in those one-score games.
Coach, Ryan talked about last year how long it took for him to move on from the Bengals loss, the playoff game. For you, trying to move on from this season, how long do you give that, or as a head coach, do you not have time?
Well, I think you're always trying. I think it's hard to move on, completely because you're always thinking about, things that happen and trying to use that as a learning, where to learn, a preparation, what you did, what you didn't do, what worked, what didn't work. But it's part of the process of dealing with, kind of where we're at. And, we'll have to turn the page and, move forward.
What do you want to see the identity of this team be going forward?
The same thing that, I've always wanted it to be. I want it to be smart and tough, fast, physical. I still think that there's a degree of physicality that's required in this game at every level. Fundamentally sound, play with technique, but we got to get faster. We have to be a faster football team. Rarely are we the fastest team out there.
What are your thoughts on analytics, whereas like how involved that is in your process?
Yeah, help me out. Which analytics are you referring to? And I'll work your way through everything that we do.
For injuries, game planning.
Okay, so injuries, what would you want to do there? We're using the analytics to track the GPS.
Right. That's what I
Yep.
want to. That's what I'm asking. What are your thoughts? Like, where are you guys with the involvement with injuries, but then also game planning?
Yeah, I mean, we have, we track the speed every practice. They have it on their iPad, and they go around and they say, hey, I'd like to get you to 90%. That's how we track that throughout the week as it relates to injuries. We get a report the next day from the game about it's got speed, max speed. It's got distance traveled at those max speeds, anything over 15 miles an hour. So you've got that list. The one thing that I would be curious in is acceleration, as it tracks from injury. We can get you up to 90%, but does it track, 0 to, 15 over 15 yards? How quick is a guy, accelerating? How can we use that to help him, recover from injury, what the baseline is? They mark accelerations, like, hey, he accelerated this many times in a game, but does it have that number of what that speed is, or what that acceleration is, that speed, over a level of time? As far as game planning, the GPS, what do you want, throw deep to the fast guys, or that's what I would do. The guys that are fast, try to throw deep to them, and the guys that aren't, they probably should be underneath running routes.
I was talking more on like how you look at probability on X play in this situation, fourth down, going for fourth down.
Oh yeah, yeah. So then that leads to game management. Stretch and I, track those, what we feel like is best in the situation. Whether to go for it or try to, kick or attempt something. Those come into account. Absolutely. We're trying to track those and see what's best, and then you try to get a feel for the game and you kind of how the game's going. Is it low scoring game? How are they playing? How our defense is playing? How many points we think we're going to need to win.
Discipline into your decision about whether or not you're going to retain Todd after the DUI?
I think our behavior and our actions outside of here are critical, whether that's, mine, the coaches, the players. I think that's something that's extremely important and critical in how we carry ourselves outside of here. But we'll have those conversations, and I'll have meetings with coaches, and we'll go from there.
Season to help Traylon, do you think, Mike? And do you have any advice for him as he heads off?
Well, it's just to understand that it's not a 6-month deal. It's a year round, and he's not taking any trips to go see other teams. And I think he realizes what he can do if he's in shape and he's ready to go and he's big and healthy. And he worked his tail off. He had some unfortunate injuries. He hurt the toe, had the concussion. But I'm excited to work with him. I'm excited for him and his future. It probably got off to a slow start, and that's how you learn sometimes, is by going through it.
Is that the position receiver where you feel like you've got to, when you talk about speed, where you've got to get?
No, you want a fastest roster that you can. You want to fast everybody. You want your D linemen to be able to run. You want your corners to be able to run. Receivers. We're just trying to. It's a fast game. And so that's what you're trying to do all the time. Just find as fast players that can play football as possible. Thanks, guys.
There you go. That was Mike Vrabel wrapping up the season on locker cleanout day, and a lot of really key and important questions that were asked. Todd Downing's future with the Tennessee Titans, Ryan Tannehill's future, Derrick Henry's future with the Tennessee Titans. What's the vision moving forward in so many different ways? What's the vision offensively? What's the vision, and who is the person that's going to be able to act on that vision, to be able to execute that vision? What's the vision moving forward with Mike Vrabel's role and how that kind of fits in with the general manager? Will Mike Vrabel play a larger role? I think all of these are very fair questions, and one in particular stood out to me. And I want to get into all of that. Plus, your thoughts, D-Mase, your thoughts, 615-737-1025. It's your day. We want your reaction. We'll continue getting to your phones, plus our reaction from Mike Vrabel, Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025-1063, The Game.
When you want all the...
Going in and the score. Blast the score. He risks one, they score.
And don't forget the...
Oh, what a stop. Sliding across to make the save. Backhander, nice stop.
When all you want is... Smashville. We have you covered. Hear every Predators game right here. We are your home for Smashville. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This week in Vanderbilt history, January 10th, 2006. Finally, a happy ride home from Lexington as the Commodores defeat Kentucky at Rupp Arena for the first time in 29 tries, 57-52. Vandy great Shane Foster hit key shots and scored 16 as Kevin Stallings' team improved to 11-2 on the season and 2-0 in the SEC. The black and gold jumped out to a hot start and later held off a run by the Cats, who raced a 14-point deficit to take the lead. The two free throws by Julian Terrell pushed the Commodores in front for good. Vanderbilt was outstanding from the free throw line, going 21 of 25. JT had 11 points and 8 rebounds. Damari Carroll scored 15 with 11 boards, and Derek Byers put up 12 points on the night. The win was the first in Lexington for a Commodore team since 1974, when the Wildcats played at Memorial Coliseum. A long-awaited victory and part of the season sweep of UK, and Vandy actually won at Rupp Arena again the following season. Commodores 57, Kentucky 52 in January 2006. This week in Vanderbilt history, I'm Kevin Ingram.
Want to kick off the new year without any credit card debt? If that sounds good to you, you can do it with Loan Pronto's Express Equity line of credit. Wipe out all those credit card bills right now. Hey, Willy Donick here. Rates are down, and it's a great move to get on more solid financial footing for the new year. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a portion of the equity you have and enjoy a rate that's a whole lot less than what the banks charge on credit cards. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity credit line, you can close in 7 to 10 days. You can access up to 95% of your home's equity. Use that money to pay off those high-interest credit card loans of any type. Credit cards, personal loans, car loans, whatever. Consolidate everything into one easy payment. Even if you did a whole total refi last year, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program and keep your main loan intact. Call Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah! The big dog's got it.
Craneworks, the Southeast leader for crane and equipment rental, is looking for the best in the business to fill positions as qualified operators, truck drivers, and mechanics. Craneworks provides superior customer service and a superior work environment. Start lifting Nashville to new heights and apply today at craneworks.com/careers. That's craneworks.com/careers.
The choice is yours, Wednesdays at 8:45. Brought to you by Jarrett Companies. Now hiring experienced sprinkler experts. Go to jarrettfire.com. JARRETT fire.com. Jarrett Companies, a company above and beyond industry standards.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Hey, it's Jared from my official sportsbook app, the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Wildcard weekend is here, and the easiest way to get into the playoffs is with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers join today to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up with the promo code JGM. FanDuel has all your favorite bets, from the money line to point spreads to player props. And when you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same-game parlay. Boy, I love Tom Brady this weekend, especially after what we saw from the Cowboys on Sunday. And I think Brady may get it done. all in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, with promo code JGM. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 and older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable free bets that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call Tennessee Redline 1-800-889-9789.
312 Pizza Company is home to Southeastern Carolines with Caroline Fenton.
Your Game Center update.
Your Tennessee Titans season has ended with a 36-22 loss down in Jacksonville. Mike Vrabel had his end-of-season press conference this afternoon and was asked about being involved in the general manager search.
You know, once they kind of get through that first process, you know, be involved in, you know, whatever would come after that, in probably a smaller group. I'm excited about that process and being involved and, you know, helping in any way that I can.
Titans team reporter Jim White reported this morning that Amy Adams Strunk is interviewing the next GM candidates this week. Strunk said it'll be important for the new GM to work hand in hand with Mike Vrabel. Andrew Nashville Predators will be taking on the Ottawa Senators this evening with pregame at 5:30, puck drop at 6:30. I'm Nick Keyser for 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
For more, follow us on Twitter at 1025 The Game or visit thegamenashville.com. Live from the Game Nashville studios. WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators. 1025 and 106.3.
A gun performance.
Do your job.
And the Tigers regain the lead.
The Game.
A Cromwell Media Station.
Covering your teams and the news of the day.
Ladies and gentlemen,
this is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase.
Who is pleasant to listen to.
With Caroline Fenton, Willie Donick, and former NFL wide receiver Derek Mason.
You are hands down my favorite radio personality of all time.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
With no further ado,
Caroline, Willie, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We are live from the Game studio, sponsored by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Willie Donick will join the show in just about 30 minutes or so, but we just heard Mike Vrabel at the podium. And D-Mase, I think you and I both had so many questions going into that press conference. I think everyone listening, every Titans fan, had so many questions about how the Titans move forward. Mm-hmm. You don't go on a 7-game losing streak and cough up the division and lose out on an opportunity at the playoffs without having a lot of questions about how this football team moves forward. And I think the biggest question that we all had, and I think more so Titans fans than maybe you or me sitting here right here, is what do the Titans do with Todd Downing? Todd Downing has been, been bullied up on all season long, ever since week one, ever since the offense kind of unraveled in that second half against the Giants. A lot of people, rightfully so, have been looking at Todd Downing like, how in the world do you still have a job? So a lot of us had questions. Was Mike Vrabel going to touch on it today? Is Mike Vrabel going to make changes about Todd Downing today? And he was pretty non-committal about a lot of things. But focusing in on Todd Downing, he was pretty non-committal about Todd Downing. He was asked several questions, kind of dancing around the subject of, how do you want this team to look moving forward? How do you want this offense to look moving forward? Do you think Todd Downing has done enough to, keep his job? And then he was just asked, point blank straight up by Jared, is Todd Downing going to be the offensive coordinator next year? And Vrabel kind of continued to dance around the subject. We're going to take some time. We're going to evaluate. So no drawing a flag in the sand about what Todd Downing's job status is and if that will be with the Titans next season. And I think that could mean one of a few different things. One, they don't know yet. That Mike Vrabel's telling the truth of, honestly, like, we need to take some time to evaluate the coaching staff, evaluate the season as a whole. Where did things go wrong? How could that have been differently? And how could Todd Downing and any other coaches whose jobs are in question, and how could that have been different? They really do need time to evaluate, which, to be completely honest with you, I don't think you really need to do much evaluating.
Well, if he was going to fire him, it would have been done, I think. Not to say that, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, he can't just, get up and say, hey, listen, we have chosen to go in a different direction, offensive coordinator. I don't think he has time. He has had the time to really evaluate those areas in depth. I think they spent so much time, Sunday and Monday. Well, today is Monday. I thought they played Saturday. It just threw my whole day
week's
off. Yeah. But I think they spent the bulk of Sunday evaluating the roster. What could be better, what they could have done, different. Where is this particular person at in his growth process? I think they spent a lot of time doing that, and not much time truly evaluating the coaches. Now, they will do that, I believe, today, tomorrow, and so forth. But I don't think he's made a decision, because I truly believe had he made the decision already, it would have been done. We've seen it already. 2 or 3 coaches have been fired. Why? Because I think those decisions were made prior to their last game. Now, granted, if you're talking about Houston or some other teams, they were already losing teams. They weren't going to the playoffs, so it's probably a little bit easier. But this team was still in the playoff hunt, and I don't think he really had time to sit and evaluate anything other than the players the last couple of games. Meaning the last couple of days, because the whole coaching staff had to evaluate players, and then they talked about them in their meeting. So I think the next couple of days is going to be crucial on, whether we hear there will be changes, whether it be with the offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, or quarterbacks coach. I think those will be decisions that will be made this week into next week, and we should hear something. Maybe not about all 3 of them, but maybe at least one of them moving forward. But yeah, it was a bunch of stuff in here, Caroline, that it didn't put you on one side or the other. Actually, it made me even question even more, like, what's going on here? Because there was and I didn't really expect him to get definitive answers, but for instance, the Todd Downing thing. I think, he said Todd Downing was consistent. Consistent with what?
If I can say anything about this football team, consistent
isn't
not one of them.
Well, they've been consistently bad the last 7 games.
Consistently not putting up a whole lot of points. Yeah. Consistently not playing very well in the second half. But those are not the areas in which this team wants to be consistent.
Exactly. So when Todd Downing's name is brought up and consistency is brought up with it, that makes you sort of like, see, like, what are you looking at? Maybe obviously you know more than us. So there's something within his game plan or his personality or whatever that you deem consistent, because what we saw on the field was not consistency. So where are you getting your consistency from? We didn't see anything other than this team was consistently inept in the second half at scoring points. But he made it seem like, in a sense, that Downing was consistent enough that he may get his job back. He may retain his job next season. I don't know if that's the case, then everything we wrote on these papers or our computers or everything that we thought, we might as well throw out the window. Just wait on him to make a decision.
And that's what I don't want to look at it as if he hasn't fired him yet, then it's not going to happen. Maybe you're right. Maybe, because Mike Vrabel says every single day we're evaluated. After every single game, we evaluate players, we evaluate coaches, we evaluate our performances as a head coach, as a whoever needs to get this team ready to go week in and week out. We evaluate ourselves every single day. So I don't believe that Mike Vrabel is going to need to take a week or 2 weeks to do these full season evaluations when he says that these evaluations are happening every single day. What is your evaluation of your offensive coordinator when you are 30th in the league in yards per game, when you're not even cracking 175 yards on average per game? What more evaluation do you need to do of the offensive coordinator when you're 28th in the league in points per game? And really the only teams that are behind you are teams that have, moved forward with their head coaches or moved forward with a quarterback. The Houston Texans have scored less points per game than the Tennessee Titans. Well, you know what they did today? They fired their head coach.
But that's something they knew they were going to do already. I think even before the season.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree
a couple
with that
of weeks
move
ago, they probably thought they were going to fire Lovey.
Right. I mean, like in terms of whatever you're giving Lovie Smith, haven't really given him a whole
Exactly.
lot. But the Denver Broncos have scored fewer points per game than the Tennessee Titans. Well, they fired their head coach. The Indianapolis Colts have scored fewer points than the Tennessee Titans. You know what they did? They fired their head coach. And I'm not calling for Mike Vrabel to be fired, but I'm looking at these teams that have performed offensively worse than the Tennessee Titans have all season long, and they're making these changes, the necessary changes that they need to make in order to take the next step offensively. So I'm going to look at Mike Vrabel and say, what more do you need to see? What more do you need to evaluate in order to say, hey, we need to make changes offensively, and it starts with the offensive coordinator.
Well, yeah. And I think he understands that, but I think also Vrabel is going to, think about this and truly evaluate everybody. He's going to give himself time. Not to say if he doesn't do it in the next couple of days, no one's getting fired, but what I'm saying is he's going to sort of do his due diligence in this process, because not only would he have to fire someone, but then he would have to hire another individual. And then what is the direction of this offense moving forward? Mm-hmm. Is it still a ground and pound type of offense? Well, he basically said, listen, that we have to evaluate too. Bringing in a new GM. What does the new, together, what do we want this team to look like moving forward? And so not to say he won't make any changes, but listening to him, I think he's going to take his time with the changes. Now, his time could be a couple of days, or it could be 2 weeks. We don't know.
Could be a couple of hours.
He could want someone that's on somebody else's staff, which he can't talk to right now.
And
that's in the playoffs.
His mind could be made up, and he just didn't want to talk about it
Exactly.
today.
Absolutely. So, and Vrabel's good at that. He's good at sort of keeping things close to the vest. If you'd have asked him that question right after the game, he probably would have gave you a little bit more of a elaborate answer. He would have went in depth a little bit more, or not. But I think since we are 2 days removed from it, I think he's had time to think about it, and he's going to take whatever time necessary that he feels he needs to make sure he makes the right decisions. And if he keeps Todd Downing, then the right decision to him was to keep Todd Downing and say fire the offensive line coach. And because he made it seem like, listen, if we can't protect the quarterback, which is true, if we can't protect the quarterback, then we can't do anything,
And that's exactly what I want to get into coming up next. Because while Mike Vrabel is not going to stand at the podium and definitively say, these are the coaches that we have decided to move on from in 2023, I think we got a pretty good indication of one that may be on the chopping block. And I want to get into that coming up next. Plus, we are right to your phones coming up next because it is your day. It's a Titans Reaction Monday. I know you've got a lot of thoughts and a lot of things on your mind. You can get those off your chest. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Bull season is here.
Keeps his feet out of a tackle, and it's a race now.
Catch all the action right here at 102.5, 106.3 The Game, and 94.9 The Fan.
Down the middle, right on the money, touchdown.
All the big moments of bowl season are presented by Boomba's Craft Pizza and Tap House, Pizza, Beer, Sports, headquartered in East Nashville, and by Superbook Sports.
My goodness, look out.
Bowl season is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Welcome to Smashville, home of your Nashville Predators. Join us at Bridgestone Arena Saturday, January 14th as your Preds take on the Buffalo Sabres. Monday, January 16th for Firefighter Appreciation Night against the Calgary Flames. And Tuesday, January 17th against the Columbus Blue Jackets. That's 3 games in 4 days, so grab your gold and get ready to cheer on the boys because there's no place like Smashville. Purchase your tickets today at NashvillePredators.com/tickets. That's NashvillePredators.com/tickets. Let's go, Preds!
Hey, it's Chase McCabe, and in the past, hair loss was inevitable, but now you have a choice for thicker, fuller hair. Trust the experts with 45 years of experience at Hair Club. They've helped more than 500,000 clients love their hair again. No matter your age, stage of hair loss, or budget, Hair Club can customize a solution for you. And for a limited time, you can get 10% off when you book a free consultation today at hairclub.com/chase. That's hairclub.com/chase.
College football season is here. Finally, it's me, Caroline Fenton, and you already know that I am pumped up for college football season. And Southeastern Carolines, you know that 312 Pizza Company is my favorite place in town. 312 Pizza Company is a family-owned restaurant located in the heart of Germantown, serving up authentic Chicago-style eats right here in Music City. You can catch every down of the college football season at 312 Pizza Company from week 1 of the national championship. 312 Pizza Company is your home for college football season.
You'd never knowingly feed your pup mystery meat or spoiled grocery store food, so why are those some of the most common protein sources in kibble today? Yep, the dog food ingredient meat meal can be made of spoiled supermarket meat and packing plant scraps.
I'm veterinarian Dr. Marty Goldstein. Your dog needs a biologically appropriate diet similar to what they would eat in the wild. That's why I developed Nature's Blend, a freeze-dried raw food made with premium cuts of meat, omega-3 rich seeds, and superfood veggies and fruit.
Bailey is 12 years old. He has been on your food for 9 bags now.
Nature's Blend is pantry safe and has 0 artificial preservatives, additives, filler, or meat meal.
He's got more energy, able to run around and play when our grandson comes.
For a limited time, save 54% off Nature's Blend and receive a free pack of premium dog treats. Go to drmartypets.com/Marty or text Marty to 511-511.
I can't thank you enough. He's 12, and I'm enjoying every day with him.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 1 additional text. Text stop to opt out.
Anyone want to tell me what happened? Did you miss any of today's show?
It's okay. It's fine. Don't worry.
Subscribe to the Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase podcast on Apple, Spotify, and other podcast platforms, or by going to thegamenashville.com.
All right, I'll give it a shot.
Having some fun in the midday.
Yeah, it's awesome.
This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Now, Mike Vrabel has not definitively said any changes or any players or coaches that they're going to retain moving forward. But I did think we got a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of what he's thinking. I want to get into that, but I want to get to your phones first. 615-737-1025. Phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chris is up next. What's up, Chris?
Hey, thanks for having me on the show. So just listening to the press conference, it just seemed like, yeah, Vrabel was non-committal about, if there was going to be any firings. But one thing that kind of stood out was that he really did, kind of put more issue on the player side of it than the coaching side of it. I mean, I don't know if you guys actually noticed it, but there was one point where he actually commented on Derrick Henry, and we said we fed him the ball, and there were a few times where he fumbled. Not, hey, this guy is one of our major playmakers, and he did a really good job for us this season. He focused on the one negative, and it's just like, well, how could you do that? And I agree with D-Mase. If you really look at this season as a whole, we have regressed. And I was doing some math earlier. If you really look at the stats, in the first half of each of the Titans games, we averaged 12 points a game in the first half. In the second half, we averaged 6. So I don't understand how Vrabel can sit there and go, we're constantly evaluating and not say, hey, look, from game to game to game, we are actually getting worse in the second half. That to me is not a player problem. That's a coaching problem. And I don't I don't know how you could sit here and say, hey, what are we doing? Are we getting better as a team when our coaches, offensive coordinator, Vrabel, all the way down, are these guys not helping our players get better? And it doesn't matter as injuries. I mean, last year alone, we had more injuries last year than we did this year.
Yeah, thank you for your call, Chris. And it's a good call, and it's a good point. And I think it's how a lot of Titans fans feel, is how in the world can you be statistically at the bottom of the NFL in almost every single offensive category, yards per game, points per game, third down conversions, first downs. And the Titans are at the top of the NFL in red zone, but they don't get in the red zone very often. So if you're in the red zone twice a game and you score those 2 times, well, great. You just put up 14 points. So I understand it. And to the caller's point about, Mike Vrabel says he needs some time to evaluate, I'm trying to figure out exactly what that means. Does Mike Vrabel actually really know what he wants to do moving forward? And he's just saying that they need time to evaluate because he doesn't want to talk about it? I think that absolutely can be on the table. Or does he really truly need time to evaluate? And if so, what more does he need to see? Or what has he already not seen enough of?
Well, I think he's giving you, or he's giving us in his press conference, a sort of a look at what he's thinking in a sense, because the caller was right, and I was surprised that he did that. You take your best offensive player, and I understand why why that's a thought in his mind, but I don't understand then why do you verbalize that thought and allow it to come out, because you didn't say that about your offensive coordinator. You didn't say, well, listen, our offensive coordinator, we can't be scoring, Todd Downing, we can't be scoring 6 points in the fourth quarter. We can't average 38 points together in a fourth quarter of games all season. You didn't single him out, but you singled Derrick Henry out. Mm-hmm. That's what I was very, very surprised with, that you went out of your way to single out the one guy that has kept your ass in that seat that you got.
Yeah.
Really. Like, he's the one guy that has kept a lot of y'all jobs because of what he's been able to do. And you single him out without even singling out the guy that is calling the plays?
And it's a fair critique.
It is a fair critique. I get it.
But to single him out.
Exactly.
And it's not just a post-game press conference where, Derrick Henry, let's say after the Jacksonville game when Derrick Henry fumbled it twice. If you want to bring that out and call out Derrick Henry after the game because that's what cost you the game, I get it. I understand. It is a very fair critique of Derrick Henry. He even did it on Saturday night. The call was just brought back. The run was brought back, but the ball came out.
Yes.
It's been a problem with Derrick Henry. Ball security has been a problem for this team and for Derrick Henry, especially in the latter half of the season. But to your point, D-Mase, to call him out and single him out in this kind of setting, when we're all wondering, offensive coordinator's job, offensive line coach's job, what's the plan moving forward? Who the heck is going to be the general manager of this football team? And you bring up Derrick Henry's fumbles, it just felt unnecessary and kind of inappropriate.
Well, and again, it goes back to, for me, you had an opportunity because there were several questions asked about your offensive coordinator in different fashions, but you still chose not to truly go there. Yeah, we're going to evaluate. Yeah, there's guys were injured, yada, yada, yada. But you didn't, at least I didn't hear him, like, specifically, Todd Downey, this is what but you pointed at Derrick Henry, has been nothing but stellar for this organization. Yes, he fumbled the football. I get it. And if you need your great players to play great, they don't need to then fumble the ball too as well. I get that part. But to single him out like that, when you didn't single out the coaches either, to me, that just, like you said, that doesn't feel right. It doesn't. And again, I'm the first one to tell you that sports ain't fair. Sometimes you're going to hear some things that you don't want to hear. But you're protecting the coaches, but not your star player. Again, you're protecting a coach who's conducting an offense that is horrible, but you don't protect your star player. I don't get it. I don't understand that part.
Yeah.
If you don't want to, I get it. You don't want to throw down, and I get that. Well, don't throw Derrick Henry under the bus either, because frankly, he's won you more games than he's lost fumbles.
Yeah.
He's lost 3 fumbles this year. He's won you more games than that.
And he's not going to stand up there and say, this is what I think about this coach. This is how I'm going to move forward with this coach. At least he didn't. But I think we did kind of get a peek behind the curtain of what he's thinking about one certain position coach. And this was Mike Vrabel when he was asked about the offensive line.
Assessing the offensive line, is it more a matter of trying to just revamp and get more players in that maybe are healthier and be better there, or is it a situation where maybe you have to kind of tweak the scheme and how you're going about things?
You got to protect your quarterback in the National Football League. When you don't, what happens? Well, they get hurt and they turn the ball over. So we need to find guys that can protect the quarterback, just because that's what happens. And he showed up, throughout the season and, kept some guys in, and Chip and all this other stuff. And, we'll just have to, keep searching for them and keep finding them and keep working with them.
I think there kind of gives you an idea. I think Vrabel's done with Keith Carter. Because what has been the issue for so many games, especially in the later half of the season?
The offensive line.
Injuries and turning the ball over. And that's exactly what Mike Vrabel highlighted in his press conference of when you don't protect the quarterback, when the offensive line can't do what they need to do, it leads to injuries and it leads to turnovers. I think Mike Vrabel views a big root of the issue for the Titans' downfall in these last 7 games is the offensive line.
Yes, but I think he's thinking about it from strictly a player standpoint. He's thinking about it from a player being healthy standpoint. He's not thinking about it from a coaching standpoint because I don't think he ever brought up what these guys need, their techniques need to get a little better and this and that. He talked about their injuries. They've been injured. That's all he mentioned. So again, he left me no, he didn't give me anything as far as what I think he will do with this coaching staff. And he did that on purpose because, again, I don't think he's truly had time or he's truly wanted to have time or whatnot to really evaluate that coaching staff the way he wants to. And he's still trying to evaluate where he wants this team to go. What does he want this team to look like moving forward? And if he wants this to be more of a passing team, then maybe, you get rid of Downey or you get rid of, the offensive line coach or the quarterback's coach. But I don't think he's really sat down and made a decision about that yet. That's why I say, give it a couple of days, and he may make it sooner than that. But to me, I think he's going to wait for a couple of days before he decides to do anything. Honestly, I would be surprised if he came up to the podium tomorrow and say, "Listen, I'm firing Downey, I'm firing offensive line." I think he's going to take time because they still don't have a GM. They still don't know the direction they want this football team to go in because they don't have a GM. You can't decide this is the way I want this team to go, but not have a GM because that GM might have another vision for this team. So he's sort of on a holding pattern now in regards to a lot of decisions he possibly wants to make that doesn't have to do with the players. And some may have to do with the players as well. So I would be surprised if in the next day, if he comes back and say, this is who we're firing or we're parting ways with. I think he's going to take his time with it.
And you mentioned the GM, and I think that's a fair point. Does Vrabel want to hold off on any sort of moves, personnel, coaching staff, so on and so forth, until they get the GM in the building? So what will that dynamic look like? We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Hey, this is Matt Duchene, and this is Smashville.
Running down the left side with Duchene. Duchene scores! Matt Duchene with the overtime winner.
You're listening to the flagship of the Nashville Predators Radio Network, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information. Subscription required.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same but is 90% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/radio. At Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the biggest brands at 90% cheaper. It's the same medication you get from your doctor, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/radio. That's 4hims.com/radio for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/RADIO.
It's electric in Smashville. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 429 has a new path to a dignified career. Local 429 is accepting applications for the highest skilled electricians and linemen and is providing the best training in Middle Tennessee. They are the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 429. Call them at 615-889-4429 or go online to ibew429.org. IBEW Local 429, your proud seventh man since the beginning. Go Preds!
Calling a criminal defense lawyer or a divorce lawyer, you may think it's the worst day of your life. It doesn't have to be. If you have quality, competent representation who can guide you through a complex system, we can do that for you. Despite if you've been arrested for a DUI or a robbery charge, whether or not you're going through a divorce or a post-divorce, or demanding your fundamental constitutional right to parent your children. 615-604-6263. AmandaJGentry.com.
312 Pizza Company is the official sponsor and location of Southeastern Carolines with Caroline Fenton.
It's a new year and a new game. Robbie and Rex Road from 6 to 9.
I don't know whether to be proud of you or to tell you to leave the room. Both would be appropriate.
Chase and Michelle from 9 to 11.
Did you look at what the other teams are doing?
That's a player I want to keep an eye on.
Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase from 11 to 2.
You're the best running back in the league.
That's one you really need to win.
This is the way we were built. And Stillman and Company with Jared Stillman from 2 to 6.
Really the greatest player in the history of the team?
It's your new weekday lineup now on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hey Nashville, Trey Wingo here. You're listening to Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Yes, for your input on anyone that you may already know that you would have a preference for?
Yeah, I mean, we've had conversations about it, so I would just say that those were good conversations, open conversations. So yeah, it's not like Amy's kept me in the dark about the process and how that's going.
There you go. That was Mike Vrabel at the podium earlier. Willy Donick joining the show. How we doing, Willy?
Hey, what's up, guys? Back in Nashville. Good to talk to you. North of the border. I was in Washington, U.S. capital, now Canada. Ottawa, Canada capital. So if I could spit it out, 2 capitals in 4 days. So that's not something everybody gets to do. But I know it's been a firestorm back there, a big day to kind of hash everything out. So let's get to it.
Yeah, and I think Mike Vrabel gave just a little bit of clarity, and we can kind of take things with Vrabelese and interpret that and how he says it, how he wants to move forward, he will move forward with or not move forward with. But before we get into all of that, Willy, your initial reaction to Mike Vrabel's press conference, your thoughts on the game on Saturday. D-Mase and I have been breaking it down over the past hour and a half. Wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I got a chance. It's interesting the perspective you have in Canada, right? In a sports bar on a Saturday night, what we're used to is if you want to watch a hockey game, right, you got to probably go ask somebody to get the hockey game on, unless you're in your market, right? If you want an out-of-market hockey game, somebody's got to really know what they're doing to find it for you. It's the flip-flop in Canada, right? There's 4 hockey games on, and we're asking the people at the sports bar, can you put the Titans game on? The Titans, like they knew there was an NFL game. Oh, are the Titans playing tonight? Oh, yeah, okay, we can get that for you. So it's kind of flip-flop, so that was an interesting place to watch it. But all of us watched the game together. I thought they played a little bit like they played down the stretch. They played with a lot of heart. They played with a lot of guts. They didn't quit on the season. But at the end of the day, the things that had been catching up to them caught up to them. I will say that I think that the rule on the fumble, the critical play in the game, they're close to one more first down or even an incomplete pass and a punt from being a possession away from winning the game 16-13, which is about as best as you could have hoped for in a game like that. They did almost everything they needed to do to win that game. But then you have the rule where I know in the day of an age of replay where we are now, that's how they call that play now, which is unfortunate. Back in the days before replay, and Derek, I think you will agree with me, that used to be an incomplete pass 10 times out of 10, not even discussed, not even disputed by the other team. When the ball goes forward that far, that used to be an incomplete pass hands down. But that's what replay has done. to the game. I understand it, and it's the way they've been calling that kind of thing. It's kind of crazy that the tuck rule was not a fumble, but that's a fumble, even though the ball traveled probably 15 or 20 yards in the air. So that's the way it goes. But at the end of the day, the Titans just weren't good enough, right? All of the things that caught up to them had them come up just a little bit short. And it's unfortunate. I've seen a lot of bits and pieces and the gist of what Mike Vrabel had to say in the press conference. I was thinking about this. Has Mike Vrabel ever gone through a season like this? Certainly not as a head coach, right? And as a player, all of the teams that he played on, as a winning, he ever went through a situation like that. That's a tough thing to handle. But I think going forward, this will be interesting how they try to pick the pieces back up.
And that's the thing. And really, to your point about the fumble, was it an incomplete pass? Was it a fumble? The frustrating thing is, it never should have come down to that. I know that so many Titans fans are so frustrated about that call, thought it was a bad call, and you can have your own thoughts on that call however you'd like. But the fact that the Titans season had to come down to that call or had to come down to this game, that's the root of the problem. And Willie, to your point, Mike Vrabel's never had a season like this as a head coach. This is his first losing season as a head coach in the National Football League. So how do you move forward? How do you get back to the days of hosting a playoff game, winning seasons, top seed in the AFC, competing for an AFC championship? That's what we all want to know, is what's the next step? What's the next steps in terms of coaching changes, if there are any? Todd Downing is priority 1A, I think, on a lot of Titans fans' list of who gets booted and who stays. Keith Carter's another one. Craig Aukerman, special teams coordinator. And Mike Vrabel wasn't willing to stand in front of at the podium today and say, these are the changes we're making moving forward. Maybe he doesn't know those changes moving forward. Maybe he does know those changes, and he just doesn't want to talk about it today. Or maybe he's not willing to make any of those changes in terms of players, in terms of personnel, in terms of coaching, until they get the new GM in the door. And Amy Adams Strunk sat down with Jim Wyatt, talked about how they're going through interviews this week, how they've brought in candidates, that they have an idea of what they want to do moving forward, that Mike Vrabel wants to be part of that conversation, that he will be part of that conversation. But I do wonder, are they not making decisions? First question, are they not making any decisions in terms of coaching staff or who they want to do, who they want to cut or keep holding on to in terms of lineup until they get a new GM in? And two, what role does Vrabel play?
Yeah, I think you don't have to figure it out today. You know, as much as I think there's blood in the water, there's so much frustration when you lose 7 in a row. And I do think the further we get removed from this, the more it will become more and more obvious that, and we've been saying it all along, but when you are decimated by injuries the way they were, you're playing with a quarterback off the street, you're playing with a Swiss cheese offensive line, you're playing without key guys on your defense, that is going to catch up with you. And it's unfortunate what happened there. And I think we can go back and say, could they have clawed their way to a couple more wins? No question about it. But the margin for error was next to nothing. So you're at this boiling point. Remember how frustrated everybody was last year when you lost in the first game in the divisional round when you were the number 1 seed. That was a different type of frustration, but it was a boiling point. Everybody wanted heads. They wanted Ryan Tannehill out. Now people are saying, well, boy, you better bring Ryan Tannehill back. Boy, I really hope they bring him back. A lot of the same people that were saying, you got to get him out of here. Anybody else but Ryan Tannehill. You see what I'm saying? It's so raw right now. People want decisions to be made. This is a process, and I do think the first step in the process has to be the new general manager. There's already some reports. I know you guys have probably said who some of the names that are surfacing with. I would think you collaborate, you build a relationship with Mike Vrabel, and then you decide, what you want to do with the offensive coordinator, where you want to start going with personnel decisions. So it doesn't have to be sorted out today, even though I know all of us want to have those decisions made right now.
I think it's all about continuity and everyone on the same page. And I think that's why the answers wasn't what we wanted in regards to, we asked him about Downey. He answered it, so we know Downing's gone now because of the way he answered it. Well, the way he answered it, we don't know if he's going to be here or not. It's 50-50.
He was incredibly non-committal.
Exactly. So I truly believe that he wants continuity between he and whoever the GM is going to be. He wants to make sure that everyone is on the same page before decisions are made. So how does that look? Well, it looks like we have a GM, we have the head coach, and now together we're going to make decisions that best fits this ball club. I don't want to have to make decisions. Even with players, I've told the players what they need to do. I've evaluated each player, but I still don't want to make decisions regarding these players and these coaches until I can get with our GM. I think they're going to make a hire as quickly as they possibly can, because they want to make sure once everything opens up, free agency, all this other stuff, that they have their GM and their head coach in place and they know the direction they want to go in as an organization. I think if Vrabel start doing some of the things that he may want to do, I think he believes that it would probably put him out of sync with the new GM. So whatever decisions he wants to run it by whoever the new GM is, and then they go from there. Or, he could come back and say, these are the coaches that I'm releasing. Mm-hmm. He can do it that way, but I think he wants to do it, in a way that's going to be beneficial for everybody. And what does that look like? He and the GM making decisions.
And I understand.
How about this, Caroline, too? Let's go back into history a little bit. Derek, you remember the 2001 season very, very well. You had a team that was a contender. 1999, go to the Super Bowl. 2000, number one seed in the AFC, best record. Lost in the first round, or the divisional round, I should say. 2001, decimated with injuries. Couldn't stay together. 7-9, frustrating season. At that point, Floyd Reese and everybody else had to decide: are we still a championship contender? Is this just a bad year? What do we have going forward here? And in 2002, back to the AFC Championship game. 2003, a team that was right there with the team that won the championship in the Patriots played a game that went right down to the last play in Foxborough. So my point is, I think more importantly than just, hey, we're 7-10, the wheels fell off, I think the bigger part of the evaluation is, when we get everybody back, what do we have? Can we compete? Can we be as good as Jacksonville next year? What does our division look like? What does the AFC look like? What does our cap look like? Can we run it back? If we have Ryan Tannehill in scenario A, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry back, what are we? What's best case scenario? Or is it time to do what we talked about a little bit last week, and that is the competitive transition? I think that's a huge decision you have to make before you really get into anything else. Is what do you want to be next year?
And I hear you. I hear you wanting to hold off and make sure that you're in sync with the new general manager. I understand the idea of let's figure out who we want to be and what our identity is going to be as a football team offensively before we bring in somebody so we know exactly who we can bring in to execute that vision. But you're also working against 31 other teams in the league who also are going to want to make coaching decisions, coaching changes, bring in new coaches, and completely shift maybe their offensive identity. So you also are kind of working against the clock, and you're competing against 31 other teams in the league who probably have a very similar idea of what they want to do that your ball club does, that you want to take a step forward, that you want to get better, that you want to bring in a new offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, special teams coordinator, whatever it is, that you want to get better. And you kind of have to start to make those decisions before the cream of the crop and the best candidates out there that fit the identity of your football team have already gotten hired elsewhere. That you can give them the best offer or the first offer, and you can get ahead of some of these coaching changes. You can get ahead of the 31 other teams in the league that are still playing and aren't looking at, who the next offensive coordinator is going to be, who the next, offensive line coach is going to be. That's the tricky part.
It's an interesting thought. Well, and that I guess that was part of the argument, right, as to why they changed the general manager, is so that they would be ready to ramp it up, and maybe they are ahead of the game there. I believe, though, in terms of offensive coordinators, I think if you know what you're looking for, the right guy would be out there if they do make a change there. And it's going to be a hard sell as much as look, I've been Derek. You know this. I've defended Todd Downing about as much as anybody in the media. I've said, look, I don't think he's an offensive wizard, an offensive genius at all, but he has had a tough hand that he's been dealt with the injuries. It has been very, very tough. And and understanding that, I still say it's probably a tough sell to your fans if he comes back. But I do think, and Derek, you tell me if you disagree, I think the right guy is out there if you know what you're looking for. There's more than one guy out there. I don't know that there's a hurry. I think you got to find the right guy.
I think the right guy, honestly, or at least I'm going to say not from my opinion, but I think from Vrabel's opinion, I think the right guy is already in the building. He didn't bring him there just to be some game passing coordinator. You're
talking about Kelly?
Yeah. He didn't bring him in just to be that. I think Vrabel already has who he wants to be the offensive coordinator.
And then that's what you believe. And I'm not saying you're wrong, D-Mase. That absolutely could be who is going to take the reins next if they do decide to move on from Todd Downing. If that's the case, what are you waiting for?
That's the big question. Maybe he could be waiting for the GM. I don't know.
It's a difficult dichotomy because I've been critiquing for the past 8 weeks. Why didn't Amy Adams Strunk make the move that she did when she made it? She said, when you make up your mind, you gotta pull the trigger. Once you make up your mind, you gotta make that decision. And
but
now
there's a correct me if I'm wrong. There's a process, right? There is the Rooney Rule for a coordinator. You have to go through that process, correct? You can't just say come to the podium and say
I think
Kelly
they
is
did
our
make a
offensive
rule. Yeah, because before it was just with the head coaches, but I think now because we know how basically a lot of these head coaches are hired is because they are coordinators first, and then they hire.
And
so that's why I say when you say what are you waiting for, I do think that is in there. I don't think you like. I know there's a lot of media that's just like I said, blood in the water. They're ready to just jump in there like sharks, but I do think you have time, A, and B, there is a process.
And you don't have to name the new offensive coordinator today. But, like, if D-Mase is saying that Vrabel already knows who he wants to be as next offensive coordinator, and you know that you want to make that change, yes, you have to go through the process and the formal interviewing, but you can say that you want to move forward if that is what you decide that you want to do. But we can pick up this conversation on the other side. Plus, we'll get right to your phones. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
The college football season never stops. ESPN college football analyst Trevor Manich joins Stillman and Company every Tuesday at 4:30.
They've got to do what Nick Saban in Alabama has done so successfully over the last 10 years.
Presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics on Nashville's best sports talk, 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hey, it's 2023. It's rolling. And how are your financial plans for the year coming along? If you have some big visions of a home improvement project, or you've decided it is time to get rid of those credit card bills, how do I do it? Well, look into it for either one of these or even some other choices. You need cash? You can do it with Loan Pronto's Express Equity Line of Credit program. Wipe out the credit card bills. Pay off the car loan. Get the home improvement project started. Rates are down, and this is a great move to get on more solid financial footing. And you don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a portion of the equity you have and enjoy a rate that's a whole lot less than what you would get from the bank's charges on credit card bills. So with a Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days, and you can access up to 95% of your home's equity. For more information, call Loan Pronto right now, 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
You look at yourself in the mirror every day and you can't deny it anymore. Your hair is not as thick as it used to be, and it's making you feel self-conscious. Hair Club is here to save the day. For 45 years, Hair Club has helped more than 500,000 clients love their hair and feel confident again. No matter what stage of hair loss, they can help. Hair Club can customize a solution just for you. For a limited time, get 10% off when you book a free consultation today at hairclub.com/Chase.
Anyone who has ever needed self-storage knows what a hassle it can be. You have to rent or borrow a truck and then find someone to help you move your stuff. And let's face it, moving furniture and heavy items without damaging them isn't easy. Renting the unit is worse. The hidden fees and admin costs are scarier than the dingy facilities you're leaving your stuff in. Why not use Closet Box instead? Closet Box is self-storage without leaving home. They'll pick up your belongings, store them securely, and bring any item back when you need it. The best part? Unlike traditional self-storage, you only pay for what you store. No paying for unused storage space. Closet Box's background check storage movers are licensed, bonded, and insured and will take care of all of the heavy lifting. Closet Box's local storage centers are temperature controlled and monitored 24/7. Closet Box has an A+ rating from the BBB. Call 877-233-5696 now for the season's best rates. Get $50 off first month storage using code RADIO50. That's 877-233-5696. 877-233-5696.
They're insightful.
To me, you got a left guard situation you got to figure out.
Credible.
I trust this guy more than this guy.
But sometimes they just argue.
Why do you like the NFL playoffs? Those teams lose. I don't want college football to be the NFL. When they get...
Robbie Stanley and Joe Rexroad are Robbie and Rexroad. Weekdays from 6 to 9 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. This is Caroline, Willy, and D-Mase on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. Hey, join 102.5, 106.3 The Game this Wednesday night at Nobles, located at 974 Main Street in East Nashville, for a Preds giveaway game. Watch party as the Preds take on the Toronto Maple Leafs at 6:30 p.m. Come watch the game, get some Preds swag, and also enter to win tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. So Mike